This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, November the 1st, 2022, episode 407. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome into another edition of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your weekly source for the latest in and around the video game industry, with a little bit of a common sense political take sprinkled in here and there. My name is Nick Craig. Thanks for joining us. You can visit our website, infectionpodcast.com. You can check out my various political antics and shenanigans at nickcraig.com. Also, hopefully you had a happy Halloween. I saw this man was dressed up for Halloween. Brian with an I, Aldridge. Brian, who were you dressed up as, and did you have a good time trick-or-treating with your new child?
Actually, I was being the dad, I was pushing the stroller around. So I didn't have an outfit on. I was going to, but no, I decided not to.
Then maybe I saw somebody else. Outfit.
Yeah, well, you saw the kids.
No, I know. Yeah,
so,
but hold on.
You couldn't see their faces, though.
No, I understand, but I
because one was Carnage, one was it Miles Morales?
Oh, so you weren't so your jacket and hat weren't a costume?
No.
Oh, I thought you were dressed up as something. I'm sorry. I'm not used to seeing you. You were wearing a graphic T-shirt with a jacket and a hat. I thought it was I thought you were being something.
I was just being casual.
Well, that's not normal. That's a costume.
I know. And so and then our little William, he was a lion because we call him Little Lion. So he had a lion outfit on, which people loved.
Excellent.
Everybody thinks he's a girl because of his long eyelashes. They kept on saying,
I get the same thing all the time.
She's so pretty because you're all long eyelashes.
Yeah, people say that to me too. They're like, "Wow, you're such a beautiful female with your long eyelashes and blue
girl.
Eyes."
Nick, you're such a
beautiful girl. Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, it's 2022. Brian with an I, Aldridge, joins us. He is on Twitter at.
Oh yeah, Boise Computer. I'm actually still there. I mean,
you're using
Elon. Actually, he bought Twitter, and so I think I'll be maintaining. And it seems like freedom is coming back. What's funny is I see people
night. Nasty.
Oh yeah. Well, I've made it to where I'm just trying not to direct anything at people, or respond to people telling them how stupid they are, because that's the thing is. That's what I enjoy doing on Twitter, and as long as I don't do what I enjoy doing on Twitter, I'll be okay. But yeah, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, Truth Social, we'll see how long those ones stick around. Oh yeah, see, this one was true, and we'll be talking about some things. But I thought this was interesting. We'll get back to it here in a minute. And if you want to check out my blog, spiteoftech.com. And of course, if you go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, you can go and check the Discord server. We have 11 ARC servers running. We're still running a Conan Exile server on there with mods. I've got it to where now it auto updates and everything. So if you're interested in Conan Exiles with some mods on it for building and just kind of quality of life mods, that we've got a server running that's running really well. If you want to watch the video of the podcast, you can do that through Twitch and YouTube, and those are live or after the fact. And then at the lower right, we got all the audio forms of that. And so whatever podcast platform device you want to listen to, what we do is record that, and then after the show is complete, we upload that to those different services. And so if you are going to listen to it, what you can do is jump on the particular episode's show notes, because on there we got links, videos, articles, the audio and video player for the show, just different ways that if you're going to be listening, a really nice supplement to that, because you can maybe watch a video that we showed on the video form of the podcast, or just reference an article as we discuss it and kind of get your own take on what it says. So that really helps. If you want to support us, there's a support option up top, or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Brian, and all of the folks that have supported us over the last couple of years. It is greatly appreciated. We'll talk about that. I don't think we're going to talk a whole lot about the Elon Twitter thing. I think that's been litigated and relegated out pretty well everywhere else. We'll chat about it a little bit coming up. We've got a story that makes it kind of interesting. But what I want to do here, Brian, is I want to read a story. I just want to read a couple of paragraphs from a story. And then I want to ask you and our audience where you think this story is going and who could have possibly written said story. I'm not even going to read the headline. I'm just going to read the first couple of paragraphs. It reads, on October the 28th, San Francisco police arrested a man for attacking Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer. Now it's being reported that he may have been inspired by the far-right movement Gamergate. David DePapi was looking for U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi when he broke into her house, allegedly, over the weekend. That was my allegedly, I put in there. He asked her husband, Paul Pelosi, where his wife was, and then attacked him with a hammer. That's after he let Paul Pelosi go to the bathroom, call 911, and do a bunch of other things. Then attacked him with a hammer. Paul Pelosi was in critical condition. Fortunately, it looks like, though, he's going to recover and be totally fine, which is, by the way, a miracle. Being 82 and getting assaulted with a hammer and not dying is pretty remarkable that he's living at all. So that's great to see and hear. The attacker, who reportedly ran a now-deleted Wix blog, posted various conspiracy theories, including how he got involved in those conspiracy theories, leading back to Gamergate. Gamergate was a hate movement that started in 2014. Now, I'm going to stop right there and, Brian, ask you and the audience, where was this article written and filed? I wish I had the Jeopardy theme, but which illustrious gaming outlet do you think published this story?
Well, usually it'd be Kotaku, but I mean,
you would be spot on. Kotaku headline: report:
Okay.
Man behind Pelosi hammer attack was radicalized by Gamergate. And I have to just read a little bit more of it because it's so unbelievable.
I figured usually anything that's just nonsense, it's Kotaku. And I didn't even look. I haven't clicked the link, and there's no hint in the title of the link because we don't show the actual links. We have the title of the articles for all of the links that we show in the show, just like what you see on the website.
So it reads as follows, and I just want to read through a little bit of this because I think it's just so unbelievably. Some folks have asked us, why do you guys talk about politics? Articles like this is why we've had to delve into politics. All right, it reads, Gamergate was a hate movement that started in 2014 but still exists in various forms today. Its proponents claim to champion, quote, ethics in game journalism. In practice, they harass and threaten women who work in games or wrote about them. Gamergate, listen to this, Brian. Listen to the gall here. Who wrote this? Who's the author? Cece Jiang, who wrote this article. Listen to the audacity in this. Gamergate was not a legitimate criticism of journalistic objectivity. What the balls on Kotaku to claim that something is not legitimate criticism? But a label that allowed a small and sad individuals to weaponize their bigotry. So this is the revisionist history on Gamergate, which, if you're not familiar with, came forward because you had video game journalists, females, that were banging, people that were making video games and then writing good reviews about them because they were in sexual relationships with them. It was a huge problem. Yeah. And you had a whole bunch of questions about, who is writing these reviews? Are these things legitimate? Just a whole bunch of problems with this. But according to Kotaku, it's not legitimate criticism, and anybody that believes it is not only small, but a sad individual. Gamergate didn't invent... Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, okay, no, go ahead and keep going, because what I had posted on my Twitter has a lot to do with this, but from a different direction. And because I have a little bit of background on this, because of that article, I did some research that directly ties to this. So go ahead and finish saying what they're saying, and then I've got some interesting tidbits.
Yeah, Gamergate didn't invent right-wing extremism, but it taught a segment of internet conservatives that they could shut down the growing influence of feminism if they used targeted violence against individuals. Feminists such as Felicia Day and Brian Wu received death threats. Wow, yeah, you received a death threat online. Get over it. So that's pretty much the article. It goes on and on and on about Gamergate and how this guy was a right-wing extremist, which I'll note he was a homeless nudist man that was a drug addict that lived in a bus that was chasing around magic fairies who had a Black Lives Matter flag and was a person in the what is known as the San Francisco gay cargo district. So all of that, and Kotaku wants to call him a radical right-wing extremist. I'll turn the floor over to you, Mr. Aldridge.
So that's where I was reading a Reuters article, which tends to be supposedly the source of a lot of news outlets. They go to Reuters, they get their articles.
So the way that it works is if you're a small town news outlet, or even not even a small town, Reuters, you subscribe to them like the Associated Press, and they're supposed to provide you with news because you obviously, if you're in Boise, Idaho, you don't have a reporter in Jacksonville, Florida. Exactly. So you contract Reuters or the Associated Press. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here reading this article and thinking, all right, usually what they say is supposed to be done by a real journalist. Well, they start going off into this is a right-wing extremist who posted online under this username, or there's this username that happens to be the same name as the guy. Yeah, you could pull up that article if you want and scroll down a little bit. Yeah, but they source him in that article, the Reuters article, as a right-wing extremist. And I said, well, by that time we knew. And one thing that's interesting about these sources that they're using, which shows you how much they actually dug into them, these blogs they're referring to were created the day of the event and deleted the next day.
Yeah, very interesting.
They were only up for 24 hours, and the guy was in jail. So how did he create these blogs while in jail, write all these articles, post them, and then how did he delete them the next day as well?
Well, and it's also important to note that there was about an 8-year lapse on his blog from these new articles to things that he wrote back in like 2013 and 2014. These things just miraculously popped up.
They appear on his blog, but if you look here, it says, in recent posts on several websites, an internet user named David DePape?
I've heard it pronounced DePape and DePape, but...
Okay, yeah. Expressed support for former President Donald Trump and embraced the cult-like conspiracy theory QAnon. The post, which is about, we'll get into that. Okay, we may not get into that. That'll get us off.
Let's not
the
get
whole
into
broadcast.
That, yeah.
The posts include references to satanic. Well, here they go right into it. We're quoting only satanic pedophilia, anti-Semitic tropes, and criticism of women, which has got to get back to that other article, transgender people, and censorship by tech companies. But then the guy is a Black Lives, trans rights, love everybody. He's got all these things on the building that he's living in.
A bus, not a building.
Well, the bus is parked in front of this building. It's a commune.
Which also where his ex-girlfriend lives, which he lives in the bus outside in front of. Yes.
Yeah, and so if you look at it, it's just obviously they did no research and didn't even bother to look at the post date. Was this posted after he was arrested? Amazing how that works. It's one of the stupidest things and the least amount of journalistic integrity that I have seen, with zero research, and just because they want to pin it on Donald Trump and conservatives, aka Gamergate, QAnon, all these ridiculous things with zero research. And so, and of course, then what I said in my tweet was, how many journalists are going to source this material because it's coming from Reuters, a legitimate source of news, and when it's proven that is not real news, but they're not correcting their article and taking it out. So all these companies are going to keep on quoting it, because on there, the now deleted Wix blog, where he posted conspiracy theories about QAnon, they reference it in Kotaku's article, and the Holocaust, and sex rings run by the Democratic Party, which is that pedophilia ring, and coronavirus. So they added to it. How did I get into all this? He allegedly wrote. It's
Gamergate.
It's ridiculous. Gamergate did it. It was just Gamergate.
We'll have a link to this in the show notes. It was published yesterday by Kotaku, and it is the I don't want to say this because then it leaves no room for things in the future, but I think it's the worst example. It is Kotaku at its absolute worst. An article like this that's just
biased,
being biased.
from
the
get-go.
the gay nudist Black Lives Matter flag guy was radicalized by the alt-right and Gamergate back in 2014, and then decided to, wanted to apparently kneecap Nancy Pelosi because of women in video game journalism. If you can connect those two things together, you're a fucking idiot. There's just nothing else to say. If one of those things equals the other, you're lost. You know what? You found the wrong show. Go. I recommend you go vote and vote straight Democrat down the ballot. That will solve all of your problems. That's your solution. That's your home there. So there you go.
So, well, let's kind of transition talking about journalism to what many of these companies, Kotaku has an article about it, are saying is the greatest Twitter video game journalist.
Okay.
This is what they say about this person. But
they're saying it. I'm not saying it. They're saying it about it. Okay, yeah. I didn't say it at all. Okay, all right. I didn't say he was a phenomenal journalist. That's what they're saying.
I've never really read it or seen it. I've not really read anything about him or seen any of his stuff. But he is the greatest video game journalist. According to Kotaku and PC Gamer.
Well, when Kotaku writes articles like that, it's really not a huge. I'm not trying to dog this guy. I'm just saying it's not really a high bar to set.
Well, so Twitter's best source of gaming news calls it quits. Is the PC Gamer's title of the article, and is it Nibble? Nibel, I assume, has canceled their Patreon and will tweet no more. And can you guess why?
Because Elon Musk is a fascist and is going to destroy Twitter.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
That is why.
Excellent.
He is shutting down his Patreon. He is quitting video game journalism altogether because Elon Musk bought Twitter, and Twitter is no longer a place for original reporting. And one thing he found is he can't get enough people to follow him on Patreon to support him that way. And so he's having to shut down his Patreon as well. He says, I've miscalculated the value of my Twitter activity and realized that there's nothing worth supporting by itself for the vast majority of people. It is not me who is popular, but it is the work that is useful. It is not valuable by itself, but a comfortable time saver. And I get that now. So that's
you know why PC Gamer and Kotaku are pissed, because this was all they had to do was read this guy's Twitter account and just rip it off and publish an article.
Retype it.
Yeah, just copy it and cite him on it. It's funny. I like to fall asleep listening to podcasts and stuff, and I tend to listen to things that are a little bit more like dry and casual, because if not, it'll keep me up. Like Security Now is a great podcast to fall asleep to. That's not a dig on Security Now. It's just. You can only hear about PGP encryption so many times before it just puts you out like a baby. So last night, Sunday night, I decided, Brian, that I was, feeling a little bit, wanted to listen to some tech news. So I pulled up and listened to the Tech Guy podcast that is hosted by the one and only Mr. Leo Laporte. And, of course, the show immediately opened with him talking about how, advertisers don't want to have their posts next to white supremacists and bigotry on the platform, because apparently Elon Musk has already allowed white supremacists are now ruling free on Twitter, according to these jackasses on the left, which, of course, they're not. This is a very popular trend. All these people, I say, sayonara. Go make your own tech platform if you don't like it, Brian. How about that? Go build your own tech platform.
And here's his tweet directly, referencing Elon Musk. I don't think that Twitter has yet experienced good leadership, and this trend will not change with Elon Musk either. I do not trust the platform. I do not trust Musk and his seemingly infinite maturity. I do not think Twitter will fall apart instantly, but that it could die a slow death. Why waste more time?
See, what's funny about that is Twitter was actually dying a slow death prior to Elon Musk. That's the trajectory it was already on. Now, it might still die a slow death. This guy's not a miracle worker. But the reason a company sold for $44 billion is, Brian, is just a little bit of a hint. And obviously this guy doesn't, in all of his journalistic integrity, doesn't seem to understand this. Most companies aren't for sale if they're doing really well. Especially not for sale to a private individual like Elon Musk. Yep. So when you sell your company for $44 billion and then take him to court to force him to purchase it at that price,
to finish the purchase,
things probably aren't too hot. where you are right now. And that's the problem that Twitter was under. So will Elon Musk solve Twitter? I have absolutely no idea. But I just find it interesting that and this is how the left always acts. Well, I'm not saying that it's always been under good leadership, but you built your whole, you built a 500,000 Twitter following on the platform under the previous ownership that you also say you don't like.
Yeah.
So what is it? So if the previous ownership sucked, why did you use the platform in the first place? I don't understand.
So Elon wrote some tweets or he posted images of text with, in some tweets talking about why he bought Twitter. And here's exactly from Elon. The reason I acquired Twitter is because it is important to the future of civilization to have a common digital town square where a wide range of beliefs can be debated in a healthy manner without resorting to violence. There is currently great danger that social media will splinter into far right-wing and far left-wing echo chambers that generate more hate and divide our society. It is relentless pursuit of clicks. Much of traditional media has fueled and catered those polarized extremes, as they believe that they believe that is what brings in the money. But in doing so, the opportunity for dialogue is lost. And he says that's why he bought Twitter. Mm-hmm. And so this person, having the possibility of someone who has an opinion different than him, having the same space to say it, is too much to be able to continue having that space and saying it, which is crazy.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah. So this is he wrote this article. I have a reference to it in the show notes, but he wrote this tweet talking to the advertisers, just saying, "Hey, advertisers, here's why I purchased it.
Yeah,
to make it to where everybody has a voice and to make it so there's less polar extremes, because obviously Twitter is a polar extreme. If one extreme is saying I refuse, since you're allowing to have anyone else speak, I'm refusing to participate anymore. You don't think that means that they were extreme?
Yeah,
they're mad because someone else has the ability to have a platform with you. You're now mad and want to walk away from it. Well, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So that's Twitter. We'll see how many people still continue to be mad. And
well, it'll be the same people that said that they were, going to leave the United States when Trump was the president, and now, they're still here 5 years later. I mean, it's just all the typical. It's the usual suspects, Brian. It's just constant, and it's a bit exhausting, to be honest with you, just to see the constant, moral outrage and the constant, worst thing ever. And, oh my God, it's the end of society and I need to leave this platform. It's pretty rich from these types of characters. But again, not surprising and not unexpected. This is just what they do.
Yeah. Well, okay. So is there anything you want to talk about that? We have a follow-up on something we reported on in the last couple of weeks.
I think that's about it. Just expect more nonsense over the next couple of weeks.
Well,
actually, no. It'll stop. I think it'll stop after Tuesday, at least depending on the outcome of the election. I think you'll see a lot of this start rescinding because they'll realize that there'll be a couple right away. I'm sure Kotaku will have an article out next Wednesday when we do the show saying that, the video game blog will have a website about how Republicans are awful and going to destroy the country, which will be good. We can read through that on the air next week. So looking forward to that.
So you remember the streamer who broke her back jumping into the square foam pit?
Yes.
Well, she has made her first appearance.
The concrete floor with a single foam.
The concrete floor with a few pieces of foam over it. Well, she made her first stream back.
I saw that.
And I'm wondering, okay, so there's some interesting tidbits that have become known that I think are just going to up the lawsuit value from this. So she revealed that when she was being checked out by the doctors, they found out that she was pregnant, and that she could not keep the child because of all the surgeries she had to undergo.
Whoa!
Now that just upped the lawsuit because it went from I'm having a bunch of surgeries which hurt to a loss of life, right? Now, of course, depending on the blog
California.
you type to, how are they that they're going to want to up that value, but then they're going to have to argue that it was a life to be lost for her to win this. And I think we're going to have an interesting
Oh, yeah, that's
discussion on
quite
these
the battle.
blogs because they're not going to want to back that up. What life are you talking about? Which says, well, I think I deserve more in this lawsuit because of the life that was lost. Well, and then you'll have all the liberals going crazy because they can't figure out what that means.
Well, yeah, this is gonna put them in between a rock and a hard place because they want to support the Twitch streamer, and especially since she's a woman. But then at the same point, they're not going to want to support that. If that's the case, they're not going to want to support that other part of it. That's tough.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of an interesting twist because they're not going to they want to stand behind her, but how are they going to do that with all the things they've said in the past?
Yeah, that's tough.
With this, but so she's working her way back. Now, one thing she said is that with the surgeries, like I guess they did all the scars are on the inside. I don't know. They did all the stitches on the inside because she's a model. I don't know. I didn't know that was an option. So you can't see the stitches. But that's
miracles of modern medicine.
Oh yeah, I mean I've had surgeries where you can barely tell. Our son, our youngest son, had a surgery where you could barely tell with the stitches. It is amazing what they can do. But hopefully with that, this will be something to where she can recover. It does suck that all that happened. It's something to kind of laugh about. But then, when it comes down to the person, it's not really something to laugh about because, I think that was a child inside of her. That was a loss of life. And they get you banned off of Twitch just saying that. But
I think about half the country feels that way as well. So yeah, I see a lot of comments on this post saying a terrible situation getting even worse. And that definitely seems to be a pretty accurate description of that whole thing.
So now here's another article that we had talked about. Remember that ex-Bayonetta actress who was mad about the money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The woman who lied in the video game industry about not getting offered a decent paycheck, and it turned out to be fake.
Yes, and so there was a follow-up article to this. Kotaku wrote it, of course. But they said that this actress asks fans to donate the boycott money to an anti-abortion group. I bet that made their head spin.
Anti-abortion group.
Yeah, Helen Taylor used Bayonetta 3 launch to plug an anti-abortion billboards. So this was something that they didn't really bash her because I think she's like a feminist, lesbian. I mean, there's all these things. Bayonetta, I've never played it. You told me about it, but it's supposed to be.
It's a great game.
There's all these things where she checks all these boxes for them in other areas, and of course they wrote all these articles about it, thinking that she's the greatest, and now all of a sudden she says, well, you should give. She gave a list of ones that you should donate to. It's just that happened to be on the list, but of course that's the one that they chase. So they said, which the list included the Kentucky-based nonprofit whose sole mission is to blanket cities and towns with giant signs aiming at guilting and shaming would-be parents.
Oh God! What a terrible description.
What do you mean would-be parents?
They are parents.
If you got your way, Kotaku, they would have killed the baby, and they wouldn't be would-be parents. How are they shaming would-be parents?
This is
they're shaming people that don't want to be parents that want to kill their children.
It says I could dream. It says I could dream before I was born. How is that shaming? It doesn't say.
It's
hey,
not shaming would-be parents because if.
Yeah, but it doesn't say, hey, read this billboard, you stupid bitch. It doesn't say anything like that that's wild or outlandish. It just says I could dream before I was born. How is that shaming? It doesn't say you're going to burn in hell or this. It doesn't say anything like that. Wow.
It's just trying to encourage people that are pregnant to consider keeping the baby. That's what those billboards do.
Whoa, Brian, slow down. That's too extreme.
Would-be parents.
Wow.
And so I thought that was interesting. Kotaku, they want to bash her, but they don't want to bash her because, believe all women. It's just one of these things. It's just one of these things. Boycotting a particular game is unlikely to fix that. Unions might is how Kotaku ends that. But boycotts don't boycott. Don't do that. Form a union instead. That's what they're saying. Because if you boycott, you might send money to an anti-abortion group.
This is becoming This show is becoming more and more head spinning and complicated by the week. I mean, it really is.
Well,
The mental
when you write your
gymnastics
articles,
that you have to jump through for any of this stuff to make any sort of sense is just bizarre.
well, and Kotaku loved her last week.
Of
But then
course
when they
they
looked
did.
at the list and realized that she wants you to donate to a place that just encourages you, if you have a baby, to consider the possibility of keeping it. Because it
Jesus.
might be cool to have that baby someday be alive and invent something that'll save the world. I mean, that's just a hypothesis, possible. Anyway, so that's that. So now they hate her again, or they hate her. She's a bad person at this point.
We did it,
Last week
Reddit.
she was the darling. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well,
all right. So
nice tying off some of the bows on a couple of those stories there, Brian. That's very good. I'm glad that we've had some good follow ups there.
all right. Well, so let's reference now my this way. My background image here was The Witcher, and some
Okay.
interesting things happening with The Witcher TV show and The Witcher game.
Okay.
So the person that was playing Netflix Witcher, Geralt, he was played by Henry Cavill, right? He's leaving after season 3. Could be a number of different reasons. So I think this season 3 just finished recording.
Okay, so
if I remember
he's done
correctly.
after any future season.
Yeah, and so
Gotcha.
they haven't announced a newly announced season 4, and that's going to be Liam Hemsworth. Now, one thing that I think is behind this is possibly money, because he makes a lot more money doing Superman and things like that. I've seen some articles referencing he could just be going and wanting to play the Superman role and not be doing this lower paying Netflix role that he's doing. But another thing that I've been reading about is that he is actually a really big Witcher fan, loves Witcher, and he's played the books or played the game, read the books, things like that. And the writers of the Netflix series came out and said they don't like Witcher, because one thing, it goes against what they believe. Because what's the Witcher game? It's kind of about womanizing. It's about a tough man coming in and saving the day. And they really, if you've watched some of the Witcher things, they've tried to make it to where the females are the strongest role, take a lot of the screen time, and they're all powerful, and kind of took it away from what the game really was just a little bit. And, it could be a possibility that he realized the writers don't like the game at all. They don't like the show. They don't like the books at all. Why am I going to stay on something that's going to just be a mockery? So he said he was leaving. Liam Hemsworth is going to be taking over, and so we'll see where that goes. I don't know. I've watched the first season, or part of the first season. It was not 100%. It wasn't what I enjoyed about The Witcher. I think they could have done a lot better job. I think they tried to just do things about the actors and crazy things like that about the characters in The Witcher, rather than doing what Witcher does, is show you the characters through the stories. And it seems like they focus more on the characters and less on the stories that make the world. But that's just my opinion. So he says, Liam, good sir, the character has such a wonderful depth to him. Enjoy diving in and seeing what you can find. Was what he had written to Liam in taking over the role. So hopefully that doesn't kind of destroy that. But there's some other news with The Witcher that came out, and they're doing a full remake of the first Witcher. I don't know if did we talk about this before? A full remake of the original Witcher? I know that we talked about the future Witchers being on an Unreal Engine 5, right?
Yes, we definitely talked about that.
With that. But they have announced that the original Witcher is going to be remastered, and this is what a remaster to me is supposed to be. When you take something that's done on a really old engine that doesn't have the ability to look as good as it does now, doesn't have the ability to maybe have as complex of playing mechanics as it does now, and remake it in today's technology to where it looks really good. So they're going to be remastering the original 2007 Witcher and doing it in Unreal Engine 5 from the ground up, which I'm pretty excited about. Because one thing about the Witchers that I enjoy is the modding support. They've done a really good job with the modding support, and I've been waiting for a really good Unreal Engine 5 game with heavy modding support so that people could make things and just run with things. And hopefully this is going to be a little bit of that, because the power of Unreal Engine 5 is pretty cool, and we'll see what they'll be able to put into mods. So they're going to be doing that. The Witcher Remake is what they're calling it, codename Canis Majoris.
Witcher's always been a popular series. I'm not indicating that it's not. But it really has been amazing to see that a franchise that, and again, it wasn't on the way out, but it wasn't the top of the mind franchise just a couple of years ago. And this Netflix series has essentially, it's like Witcher's got to be one of the hottest IPs right now. Yeah. In the video game,
well, plus,
like ones that are actively being worked on.
Bingo, boom, shakalaka.
Yeah, well, a whole bunch of people purchasing it, but you look at, there's a lot of popular IPs, but in terms of ones that are being acted on right now, I'm not sure that you'll find many more outside of the new Call of Duty, for example, that is as hot as the Witcher franchise. I just don't think you will.
Yeah, and I think that that's something where it sparked the interest, got people buying it, maybe brought them some excess funds to where they realized people want to play these games still. Maybe it's worth making the original Witcher, because the thing that I think about the older games are that it used to be people would take a lot more time in the writing. There was a lot more thought put into the production of these things. They would take a longer amount of time making these games, because it was less about the technical sometimes, and they wanted to make the story and the content be what really drove the game. So with The Witcher, that's one thing that's been interesting, is their storytelling is amazing. I felt like they didn't hit that mark when it came to Cyberpunk, because I was expecting the Witcher level of storytelling in Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
and it wasn't really there for me. Yeah, but when you play The Witcher, it takes you on a story, and you just get to know the characters, which a lot of video games miss.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks were expecting. I don't think a lot of folks. I know for a fact a lot of folks were expecting the Witcher series or the Cyberpunk series to have that same kind of thing that Witcher had, and it just didn't. It just fell short, and that's
And I think it came down to a race at the end that they didn't make the content and have all the time to do it. Well, and that's where I think, like with this, we don't have to worry about the content. The content's going to be there. It's just it's going to look good again, and it'll make people that have never bothered to play the old-looking game. To them, it'll be brand new.
And just to remind folks, the Cyberpunk game was delayed 3, if not 4 times, and one of them, I remember back to PAX 2019 or 2018, in which 2018 I think it would have been, where they literally canceled the show that they planned on having with the developers at IGN at a bar, like hours before it was scheduled to take place. It's supposed to be this big conversation with the developers, and it didn't happen. There was still free alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so looking at what CD Projekt is doing, they announced the new Witcher trilogy, and they're doing a new Cyberpunk
the DLC
trilogy, but the DLC. Well, and it's going to be a full standalone, from what I remember. Like it's a full standalone game. The next Cyberpunk that they're doing, I don't think it's
the DLC that they're coming out with. Yeah, no, I think the DLC that they're coming out with soon, TM, is an add-on to Cyberpunk. It's a DLC. It's like a $20 or $30 DLC. Now they might be doing another new
but I think
Cyberpunk
it's a
game
standalone story. But I think it's a standalone story all by itself.
Oh,
it's
okay.
not like it's extra
I
quests,
gotcha,
and things like that. And so so they're adding a bunch to the whole Witcher, which I'm glad of, because I've played most of the Witcher series, and it's because it's just the quests don't feel super repetitive. Now, of course, there are certain things that you go do that are somewhat repetitive as far as going. But one thing that they always did really well in their games is to not make everything feel kind of like what's the game that's super repetitive? They did one in Montana, for one of their last ones. The one in Montana about that cult, Far Cry. Far Cry seems like Primal, all of those, they seem like, oh, this is new and original, cool, unique content. until you get about halfway through the game,
Oh,
and then you're like, I've done this.
Not halfway, my friend. Get
50 times.
Get a quarter into the game, and it's just like,
okay, quarter.
Oh wow, I need to go pick this.
But by the time you've hit half,
here.
you've done it 50 times.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You've
Yeah.
done the same thing 50 times, and it's like, okay, I almost every single one of those games I've tapered out just because I'm like, I know exactly what I'm gonna do in that quest. I know exactly what I'm gonna do in that quest. It's the thing that I did for this half of the map already. But with The Witcher, they take you to new places. The story changes. Characters die. Characters, come from new characters come in. They do a really good job of telling that story. That's why I think with doing the remake, that that it's not going to be something that's just thrown together. It's a story that's already been done, and it's done well. So we'll see. They're actually, the Cyberpunk 2077 is a sequel. So it's going to be a sequel. I've got a thing here. Codename Orion.
It's a sequel, but it's DLC. It's only like $30, I thought. Or is it a completely separate $60?
No, I think it's a, let's see, introducing multiplayer. Okay, so here it's going to be multiplayer.
Which, by the way, we were promised in the original, which still has not happened.
Yeah, it was supposed to be in there. I'm trying to see where they actually talk about it, but it's actually going to be a sequel. So it's going to be like a Cyberpunk 2. So I don't think it's going to be necessarily a DLC. It's supposed to be a full sequel.
Well, there's a 0% chance I buy that then.
Yeah, we'll see.
There's no we'll see.
One thing is,
ain't gonna happen.
What I'm hoping they do is do this one right and make a giant world, because I still think that Cyberpunk, the possibility of what you can do in a Cyberpunk universe, as far as the genre of a game, is so huge that if you did it right, it would be awesome. But the thing is, once, you saw, they dropped the ball so heavily.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Or fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That ain't going to happen. Yeah. You can't be working on a sequel when the game that you promised me still isn't done. There's still no multiplayer.
Yeah, I think they're going to kind of leave the first one alone.
Well, okay, well then give me the second game.
But the new one going to be done in Unreal Engine 5?
I don't know what it's going to be.
Redo that one in Unreal
I don't care
5.
I don't care what it's done in. Then you need to give me the game for half the price, since I own the original one, and I wasted $60 on it and didn't get half the shit you promised me.
Do you know? Okay, here's why I don't think it's going to be a DLC, because I think that what they're going to do is do it under Unreal Engine 5, and the reason why is Epic is partnering with CD Projekt Red for all of these new Witcher games to do them in Unreal Engine 5, because they're promising to give them the ability to do a big open world inside of Unreal Engine.
So we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about Phantom Liberty, which is a DLC.
I'm not talking about that. That's something that they're coming out with. They're coming out with a full sequel to the original.
Yes.
So
we were talking about two different things. We were both
two different games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. Phantom City is expected to be out sometime in 2023, and that's the DLC for
DLC version that's going to be for the original Cyberpunk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now they're also coming out with a full sequel, which I think is going to be under Unreal Engine 5, taking advantage of all of the enhancements and things that they're implementing into these Witcher games. Because that was the whole point of them going to Unreal Engine 5, is because they're partnering, kind of like what Epic did with some other games, to use those studios to implement features into their engine, because those studios, needed this, and this to work correctly. Well, if Unreal Engine wasn't doing that, they'll work with both sets of programmers to implement it into the engine itself. That's what they're doing. So I bet you the multiplayer, big open world stuff is what they're going to be working with. And if you're going to do it, because I think they've realized it's too much work to implement it into that old engine. It's not Frostbite. I'm trying to remember what their old engine, the CD, whatever they call it. But that old engine that they used to work on, I think they realized it's not worth trying to implement multiplayer into it, because they've not done it before that I've seen. And why do it now? Because they'd only be doing it for that one game.
Yeah.
So Unreal Engine 5, it'll be cool. I'm really interested to see what they do, because they're making now, 5 or 6 games, it looks like, under the new Unreal Engine, taking advantage of all this stuff.
Moving over to some more traditional video game news in terms of hardware, there's an interesting article out, and I think it very well, very much piggybacks off of a lot of conversations we've had over the last couple of months about streaming in the future. Actually, I think it was even last week we had the discussion about consoles. According to Philip Spencer, who is essentially the CEO of Xbox, for lack of a better title, he's reporting that Microsoft loses between $100 and $200 on every Xbox it sells. So they're
and you wonder why they're not rushing them out the door.
Yeah, so they're producing. Let's say the Xbox costs $400. They're producing it for between $500 and $600, and then selling it at a loss 100% of the time. As and this is not something that is new. Traditionally, but it's never been really a big loss. In the past, like for example, I remember with the Xbox 360, Microsoft essentially sold it for cost. They didn't make anything on it, but I don't think they lost anything on it either. They sold it for what it cost to make, and then they made their money on Xbox Live and the portions of the game sales and all of that stuff. Well, in this case, you can't afford to lose $200 on every console. I think part of this is probably supply chain. And the lack of available chips and things like that. Everything is more expensive thanks to certain political leaders. So that's, I'm sure, adding up to it as well. And Xbox is saying that while it is not happening during the holiday season, that it is likely that they'll have to raise the price of the Xbox after Christmas, just because no rational business can make a device and lose $200 as it walks out the door. You can't do that. It's not possible.
Well, and I think that this is really going to show for why they're doing that. The Xbox, that disc, the replacement streaming disc that they've been showing. I think that is a perfect. They can almost give that thing away, and it will bring them more money. If they just make them and give them to people, it'll make more money than what their Xboxes do, because it guarantees that they're going to have an Xbox Game Pass subscription. Because what's the point of having that device if you do not have an Xbox Game Pass subscription? So you might as well almost give those things away, and you're guaranteed a monthly income from them. And if people don't pay, or if they don't have a reason to keep using the thing, unless they let it keep unlocked and used as a streaming device, but they can sell it for at cost, and it'll still be way cheaper, and they'll be making just as much money aside from the initial loss of a regular console, because a lot of people are using the Game Pass anyways now.
And you might be able to afford to lose $25 or $50 a sale, if you're hyping the subscription service or pumping that hard. But $200 on a $500 device is not a margin that is sustainable. That's just not sustainable long term. And they also cite, it's not just the physical consoles that are rising in prices. This article quotes, games are now $70, which I don't think is a fair comparison at all, because the cost to develop video games, if anything, has actually come down from what it was years ago, not gone up. So I don't think that that's a fair comparison. The only comparison, I think, is that you're seeing just a general rise in the video game industry for things.
Yeah, and I think, here's where this is going, though. And there's a follow-up article where Microsoft says it's going to be increasing the Xbox prices after the holidays. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be going up, and a lot of it has to do with this hardware. The cost of games in general are getting to be a higher price. Yeah, go ahead.
This is the first comment on this Kotaku article that says price increases are coming. It's by a guy whose icon is the GMG union, which is the video game union, saying, quote, "They don't have to. They want to make shareholders happy. And they already cut their staffing to the bone," which I haven't seen that at all. "The only thing left is to increase prices."
They let go of a little bit of people.
"Welcome to the end stage capitalism, where if you don't own everything or get bought out, then just making shit tons of money isn't enough. Luckily, they can blame it on inflation, and nobody will pay attention to the record profits every company is taking right now. And of course, this one person responds back and saying, in their quarterly reports, they noticed that revenue's down. But for this, these idiots, Luke Planuti, or whatever the hell this guy's name is, that wrote this comment,
Plunkett.
is just Plunkett is just a total jackass.
Well, and here's the issue, though. I don't know if people realize this, but a lot of the reason we're having all of these supply chain crises and everything is because we're paying people to not work. It's now become more of an incentive to stay on welfare because some people make more being on welfare now, because once you get on welfare, for instance, here in Idaho, you can't ask to have your benefits lowered because of all these things that they put in because of COVID. They will not give you less money. They will not take you off of certain things for welfare. And so for a lot of people, why would you go work? You're not forced to work anymore. And so the people trying to prevent capitalism is what's causing a lot of this to fall apart. The things that they implemented because of COVID being so scary is why a lot of these things are having issues. If you truly let capitalism come back and quit trying to regulate everything and prevent people from working and prevent, companies from doing things, guess what? Then you would see that things would start getting cheaper, like it does, whenever we seem to get more conservative people in office and things are great and everybody's like, oh, it's so good, let's just throw it all away again.
It goes to comments like this just go to show you the disconnection from reality that people have. They're just trying to make their shareholders happy. Yes, that is what a public company is legally. It's not just the point. It's what they're legally obligated to do. You invest in a company as a shareholder and expect a return and expect that company to have your best interests in mind. That is why you invest money into something. You don't invest it for them to piss it away. So yes, of course, they're doing this to keep their shareholders happy. They're legally obligated to, Brian. This is not just some idea that they want to do. If they don't do that, there are serious ramifications of it. It's mind-boggling to me. It's just mind-boggling to me that this is even that these comments just pop up every time. Completely mind-blowing.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of
capitalism.
It is they're mad because of unions not being fully implemented over at Microsoft.
Obviously.
There's all kinds of reasons they're mad. Yeah. So another article here that came out just today, the EU is about to launch, and this is, of course, PC Gamer saying this. EU is about to launch an advanced probe into Microsoft Activision's deal. Sources say, whenever I hear people that are, what's the other term they like to use? People that are familiar
anonymous sources.
with.
A
lot of times they'll say people familiar with the. Whenever they say that just like people are familiar with, that guy in his gaming blog, talking about how Gamergate ruined everything. But according to sources, they're really going to be cracking down. So we'll see, because on here, sources tell Politico that the European Commission plans to open an in-depth Phase 2 investigation into Microsoft's $68 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. The Commission is said to be launching the investigation after Microsoft decided against filing remedies, commitments that would satisfy the Commission's worries regarding the deal, before a deadline of midnight tonight. So we'll see if that's going to keep on the mess. But this keeps going back and forth. And of course, when they're in all these different countries, so they have to appease so many people. And the EU usually likes to put fines in so they can get a couple of $1 billion out of any deal as free money.
They do that all the time.
Society.
Yeah. Oh, if we're going to fine Google $1 trillion, $1 billion here and $500 million there, it's par for the course. Microsoft is a very smart company. They know exactly what they're doing, and there is almost no circumstance where I see this not going forward because of one of these commissions or groups. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. Well, and
to be fair,
I
was going to say, to be fair, Microsoft was deemed to be a monopoly back in the 90s in Internet Explorer and that whole thing. So, I mean, I guess I could be proven wrong. I don't see it happening this time.
Well, and so Phil Spencer 3 days ago, of course, before that article came out, said that he felt that the regulators' concerns around Activision acquisition were fair. That they were being fair.
I'm sure
and honest.
they are.
Yeah. And it's a big acquisition. There's no doubt. Microsoft, in its role in the tech industry, is a large tech company, and I do think the discussion around an acquisition of this size is warranted.
Sure,
I've appreciated the time to go spend. So,
they're not
complaining about it.
Wow.
Yeah,
publicly.
they realize it's going to be a big deal. He expects it to take a bit of time and a lot of things to happen with it. So we'll see what happens with it.
And for this,
it could be that in a couple of weeks we'll hear that it's going through, or who knows if they'll continue pushing it.
Yeah, from everything I understand about this, it all has to do with specifically access to games like Call of Duty. That's literally what some of the big complaints are, which Microsoft has already stated. And yes, could they change their mind? Maybe. But they've already stated that they have no interest, and I truly believe this. They have zero interest in making Call of Duty a single platform game. There's just too much money in it not to have it available on the PlayStation.
And they said a quote here. I don't have it in our notes, but they had said a quote that there will be a Call of Duty for PlayStations as long as there are PlayStations.
Why would there not be? There's no reason for me to think or believe that they would do this. You're talking about one of the largest video game franchises in history that's existed. I just don't foresee Microsoft doing that with other games, Starforge or Starforce, whatever the hell that Bethesda game is. Sure, maybe the new Fallout, maybe, but Call of Duty, it ain't gonna happen, Brian. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, and everything they've indicated is they're going to continue producing it for all of these different places.
And right now, the reason it's not on Game Pass is because of a previous commitment with Sony. It's the reason the game's not on Game Pass.
Yep.
They're not litigating that. They're following through on the contract, because I'm sure Microsoft could litigate their way out of that if they wanted to, or at least bring forward a delay in it to do something, get some sort of temporary stay against Sony. They could have done something, but I don't think they really had any interest in doing it, so they're not. And they're getting, and I'm not a Microsoft apologist or a big Microsoft. I'm not a shareholder. I'm not a big guy Microsoft here. But it just doesn't seem like they have any interest in ripping one of the most successful franchises in video game history off of one of the most popular consoles. I don't see it.
PH says,
it's a bad business move.
PH says Nick is friends with Bill Gates, confirmed.
Well, I can't confirm or deny that, but that has nothing to do with my thoughts here on Xbox and Microsoft.
I have one final thing I wanted to bring up here, because it is related to Microsoft. But Bethesda is going to be putting out a free 4K update for Fallout 4.
Oh, sweet! Right.
I did notice that there were people that they've made a mod. I don't have it in here, but there's a mod for New Vegas that is done under Fallout 4, so that it can take advantage of this 4K update. So they've made a mod that has all of New Vegas in it, so that they can use the graphics from Fallout 4 in order to have it be high quality.
So Fallout New Vegas exists completely inside of Fallout 4 as a mod?
Yeah, someone made a mod of the game.
Well, that's, as PH says, DMCA in 3.2.1. I mean, you can't do that. So you can't.
But Bethesda has allowed it. They have said, if I remember reading on that article, they're allowing that to happen. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how long that happens.
Well, the internet, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so they have that. And then Fallout 3 is supposed to be free on the Epic Game Store. If it's not, I don't know if it is still, but they've also had it free, I think, in the Prime Gaming here. I saw a number of things with Fallout in there because their 25th anniversary celebration that they're doing. There's been a number of places you can get Fallouts for free. So go check that out. But they're doing a lot of different events. So PH says Rockstar would have already brought a SWAT team to the modder's house for doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Rockstar, if you're going to try and mod or do something to a company, Fallout or a Rockstar is definitely not the one. Take-Two is definitely not the one you want to try and, or Nintendo. They don't like that stuff either. Which is not.
So the Fallout 3 giveaway on Epic went through the 27th. So we just missed that. So
well,
that's too bad. But
too bad everybody already owns
I think
Fallout 3.
I think you can get under Prime Gaming right now because I was going through and doing all my claiming here. So I think it's there as well. I saw.
How much is Fallout 3 though on Steam? Does Fallout 3 even play? I didn't even think. I thought Fallout 3 required Windows XP. I didn't even think it ran on Windows 11.
No, I think it still does. Fallout 3, yeah, $9.99.
Yeah,
now the Game of the Year edition is, which I have, is $20.
I see.
So
well,
there you go. Yeah, so it's still it's a fun game.
You want to know the minimum specs?
Some of the older ones.
And you're probably still running a computer like this. Windows XP or Vista with a 2.4 gigahertz Intel Pentium 4 or equivalent, 1 gigabyte of memory if you're on XP, 2 gigabytes if you're on Vista, and 7 gigabytes of hard drive space. You also need to have DirectX 9 compatible video card for audio and video with 256 gigabytes worth of RAM or better. So just be advised of that.
Well, in Fallout, the Game of the Year edition comes with the 3 different add-on packs as well. I'd have to see what those are. The Pit.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Operation Anchorage, Broken Steel. It says 3, but there's more listed here. So, Lookout, and Mothership Zeta.
PH says, I wonder if somebody out there still runs Vista. Yeah, business most definitely still has a computer running Vista that does something. What it does, I don't know, but it most definitely exists. Yeah. So, all right. Speaking of this, before we round out the show, I want to say I've been playing the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So far, enjoying it. I've been playing it on battle.net. This was, and I have to find the tweet. This was the biggest Call of Duty weekend, I believe, in franchise history.
Nice.
Let me see if I can find the post. Charlie Intel put it out earlier today. Yeah, here it reads, Modern Warfare 2 set a new franchise opening weekend record as the #1 top-selling Call of Duty digital opening through its first 3 days. So you've skewed the numbers there, digital opening. So they just say, though only it's through only its first 3 days of release, Modern Warfare 2's opening topped the previous 5-day franchise record, which was set in 2011 by Modern Warfare 3. So with this, they are very excited in terms of the opening weekend on this. So good stuff for Call of Duty, and it checks out. I have really enjoying the game. Really been enjoying the game. It's a lot of fun.
Well, good. Well, yeah, and I'll have to see if my wife enjoyed the last one. She got really into it when she was playing it. So I'll have to see if we.
Oh no, we played it. We played a couple times, and you were awful.
I know. I don't play it enough.
Yeah, that's a fact.
She did much better than I did.
If you're a Call of Duty player, hit me up on Discord.
Sounds good. All right. Hey, well, let's go ahead and go with that. If you want to catch me, get me at Boise Computer on Twitter or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, and Truth Social, or you can check out my blog, biteoftech.com. Or if you just go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, in the upper right-hand side, join our server on Discord. It's a great way to get a hold of Nick and I. And if you want to play some ARC, we got 11 ARC servers going. We have a Conan Exile server going in there. Maybe there's an article or a news thing that you think we're missing, a game coming out, or something you think we should talk about in the next show. Throw it in the news channel. We've got a link, put a link in there, and we'll review that before the show starts. If you want to watch the video form of the podcast, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube, and that is live and after the fact. And if you're going to be listening to it, you can do that at the lower right-hand side, a lot of different platforms and ways to listen, and those are recorded and uploaded, so you can't do that live during the show, but if you are, then you'll be able to go and check out the show notes for that particular episode, and if you go, there's a video and audio player built into that page. Also, we've got links to videos, reference material, any of the sources that we're talking about. Perhaps you want to follow along while you listen. That's a great way to do that through the particular episode show notes. And if you want to support the show, you can do that through up top on the menu, or you can go to infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, you can go to infectionpodcast.com/support. And I want to thank our friend UGX Vibe for hitting us up with the 57-month resubscription, saying CODFest this weekend. Yes, amen to that. We're all in, and we're ready for that as well. So thanks, UGX Vibe, greatly appreciate it, and thanks everybody for joining us. Quick programming note, we will be here next Wednesday, so looking at the calendar, that puts us out on November the 9th. I've got some work commitments, as next Tuesday is election day, so I'm not going to be able to make that show. But we'll be back on the Wednesday morning, or excuse me, Wednesday evening, and we'll have our regular show then with all of the news and things of that, and likely some more, as I mentioned, probably very dishonest and ill-advised Kotaku articles, Brian. If I were you know what, Brian, you want to make a friendly like $5 wager whether Kotaku writes an article about the world coming to an end if Republicans win?
Well, I know they're already.
Would you take me up on that?
No, because I already know it's going to happen. Are you voting for or against?
A 4.
Oh, well, me too. So it's kind of hard to say.
Okay, well, then I guess we can't do a wager on that. So stay tuned for that next week, and we'll keep track on all that stuff. Brian, thank you as always, greatly appreciated, and we will see you next time. Alrighty, folks. Well, Brian mentioned his Twitter. I never left Twitter because I am a tried and true big tech fanatic. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out my website, nickcraig.com. You'll find all of my political antics there, including an interview I did a couple of weeks ago with the 45th President of the United States. Pretty cool. Find all of that there. If you missed any portion of this program, maybe you really need to read this Kotaku article about how Gamergate caused a guy to use a hammer 8 years later. You can find that on our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.